Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton and the Daily Brentford from the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott. As always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Zach Ingo Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
You
Not
sure?
quite, no, but we're getting there. It's all right. And from our friends at the Daily Brentford, Daniel, how you doing, mate? You're right.
I'm good. I'll be there at the weekend, so hoping for our first away win of the season because we've not won away yet. So,
well, we do love to hand those streaks to people. That would be very saints of us. Yeah, it's a bit of an up and down season, I guess, for both teams. In segment one, I guess we'll hand over to Daniel and ask us some questions about Saints, and we'll come back to a much better side of the team in segment two for Brentford. So, Daniel, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I want to know is what's changed under the new manager in terms of style. I think you guys look a bit more solid now, and less of the silly mistakes at the back, perhaps. But yeah, what's changed? Are you now harder to play against? Do you have more hope for more points going forwards, I guess, under the new manager?
You want to start, Greg?
All right. Well, look, it can't get worse.
Oh, good. We're on the same page.
No, look, we look a little bit more solid defensively, although we do still concede. We're not conceding in as daft ways as we were previously, where we were literally gifting the goals. But, I mean, it was never really... It's always been known that our struggle comes at the top of the pitch. I think it took until about November for any of our strikers to get on the score sheet in the Premier League, and even then it's been flaky at best. But the system has been completely different under Djuric with the little time he's had on the training pitch with the players. And I think the biggest concern so far is that he seems to have changed the system and replaced our striker with the only striker we've had who's been almost consistently scoring in Cameron Archer, and been putting Tall Paul on as the focal point, which is fine. It does the job it needs to do. He's good at holding the ball up, but I think we're all eager to see the combination of Tall Paul and Cameron Archer, and we're hoping that that's going to come into play at some point. Right? It's only got to be a matter of time.
We would like our strikers to score. Don't care how. It would be nice. Yeah, the problem is like, I think I was saying about it the other week, and one of the fans of the pod actually corrected me. It was like, oh, like, you know, he's been in for a week and a half. It's like, no, he's been in a week, and you're like, oh, he's barely been here. And I think that's the problem, is we haven't really had a chance, and he's kind of tested around with different personnel to see who will actually put a game in. Realised that a lot of the players that weren't being picked for good measure, but I'm hoping he's kind of, now we've had a solid week of training, we'll actually see some sort of style that he wants to implement, because the last couple of games have been very much what they were directly after Russell Martin went, which is the players kind of playing the same, except far more willing to kick it up the field, which was fine up until the game. Like, what was it? Who did we draw against, Greg? That was terrible. It was the most boring. Fulham.
Yeah.
Most boring game of football I've ever seen. But it was nice because we got a clean sheet. But then obviously, like, we were just unable to create nothing. And then it's just nice to see us getting more shots, having when we have possession, it feels useful, as opposed to like winning the 90% possession stat and then like, yeah, look, we won 90% possession. We had one shot, but 90% possession. So yeah, I think we're looking forward to actually seeing his style be implemented properly, because I don't think there's been quite a chance yet.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult. It's difficult changing anything mid-season as opposed to at the end of the season. It's difficult as well if you haven't done what you felt that you should have done in the transfer market at the start of the season. Again, it's difficult with this squad of players, and it's perhaps maybe even difficult to get players in January if they look at the table and see that you guys got 6 points, and it might be likely that you're playing in the Championship next season. But is there any hope from your guys' points of view that you could do something really special and stay up, or is it now just about preparing for next season?
I'd say preparing for next season, if I'm totally honest. I think that the fantasy, like, the fantasists and all of us would love us to stay up and do something special. We are much better at breaking records for other teams than for ourselves. You've got an out of form striker not scored in 30 games. Don't worry, play against Southampton. And that sounds overtly negative, but also it's just the reality of the situation. They tried to do that last time round when they realised relegation was essentially inevitable. Right? We had 3 managers in a season. They tried to kind of throw the kitchen sink at the January transfer window, and what it resulted in is, the reason we have big, tall Paul Onuachu in our squad now is because he was, I think, the 5th choice striker that we purchased on deadline day, brought in, and then the manager who was managing him then left. So, I don't think they'll want to make any hasty decisions. It probably cost a lot more money than they are willing to let on to fire Russell Martin and his team. I think we would definitely need to see some outgoings, but I think that they were extremely burnt by some recruitment that was good, i.e. like Matías Fernandez, but a vast majority of the recruitment being, let's buy all of the players from these teams that got relegated last season. What could possibly go wrong? Ben Brereton Diaz, who was not part of a winning side for the entirety of last season and last year, which has got to be, from a mentality perspective, very upsetting. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how you feel, Greg. I know you kind of have similar thoughts, but probably slightly more optimistic than that.
Yeah, I think that I don't think they can be seen to be defeatist in accepting their place for the championship. So I'm fine with the optics of signing a couple of players in the aim of surviving, but I think it's all about being sensible and not putting the club at risk by doing anything drastic. But I think there'll be some movement and maybe even one big signing as opposed to a few small ones. But yeah, I think it will mostly be working optics as opposed to actually giving us any hope, because it's a long, long way away, right? It's some real fight.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it's hard to win any game in the Premier League. I mean, even after a few years, we go through periods where it's hard to find where the next win's coming from sometimes. But yeah, I guess that's how it goes. The last question I wanted to ask, bit of a wild card question, really. What is Kyle Walker-Peters' contract situation? Because I thought that he was out of contract in the summer, and Brentford are a team who don't have fullbacks because Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey don't look like they're coming back anytime soon. And I've been kind of suggesting on our podcast that someone like him, I think he is one of your better players and would do a job at Brentford, and he can play on both sides. And I thought if he's out of contract, maybe we can look at doing something. So what are your thoughts?
I am rattled is my thoughts, because I spend a vast majority of this podcast talking about whenever we get asked the question, and this is a wild card, because the question we always get asked is, how amazing is Tyler Dibley? And I'm like, yeah, he's great. Please purchase him and leave people like Matty Fernandez and forget that we have Kyle Walker-Peters. Because for me, he is one of our better players. A lot of the fan base seem to think he's kind of switched off. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's put in 100% effort. He had offers when we went down that he kind of turned down. He's seeing out the end of his contract. I feel like it's one of those situations where there's probably a contract on the table. I very much doubt he will sign it, especially with the situation now. I think we're probably in the last 6 months of seeing him. I think he's been probably one of the best servants we've had at the club in the last couple of years. I think he's probably one of the better prospects. I think he is one of the ones as well that if he was to go from the team, I think that he would fit in very well at any other side, because we've had a couple of people that have thought the grass was greener, right? Like a Danny Ings situation, and then from club to club to club to club. Even James Ward-Prowse now is sitting on the bench at Nottingham Forest, where they don't want to send him back to West Ham because apparently his influence is really good, which must be lovely for a guy trying to get back into the England squad. But yeah, Kyle Walker-Peters is a fantastic player. And from his contract situation, yes, it is definitely due to expire in the summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is a surprise disappearance in January that upsets everybody. specifically me, and on top of that, Greg's sister-in-law.
I guess it makes business sense though. If you were to sell him for something now, it would make business sense.
Exactly why I could see him going in January, because from Sports Republic perspective, we need money. We're going to need money going down. He is probably, I don't know if he's one of the better paid players. He certainly should be, in my opinion. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't think that he will re-sign, and I don't blame him for that.
And he would get into our team. He would get into our team, and he knows Rasmus Ankerson of Southampton, ex-Brentford. Good links there, so you never know. Watch this space.
Yeah, no, I also wouldn't be surprised. And I think that the fact that it's good business is probably what would upset a lot of Saints fans, because good business and good football don't often match. So that seems to, I don't think anyone's doubting Sports Republic's business credentials, but there are serious questions about their footballing credentials at the moment. So it's a decision that really could sway the vote that way.
Put you through enough. That's all from me. That's all from me.
Okay, so it's time for a message from our partners, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Brentford. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so we've heard plenty on our show about our woes and angst from this season. And last time we talked to you, Daniel, we were probably full of joy and hope and optimism coming into the season, and then promptly got beat 3-1 by you guys.
Classic.
But it feels like you guys aren't on the best run of form at the moment, but it's hard to say that looking up at your points and thinking how much we'd love to be there. So how's it feeling at Brentford at the moment? You feeling okay?
I mean, we're okay in terms of points. I mean, we've got about a 10-point gap on the bottom three, and that's a big gap when the bottom three don't typically pick up 10. It'll take them a while normally to pick up 10 points, the likes of Ipswich and Leicester and yourselves. So we feel okay in terms of our position. If you look at the points you're on and what's needed to probably stay up, you're probably only looking at about another 15 points. And if we don't get that in, half a season, then, I would be a bit concerned. But I say to you guys on 6.
Yes. The problem is it's all accurate and all completely fine. It's just,
if you're looking at staying up, I mean, you guys will know this as well. If you're looking at staying up, you need at least 15 points per half of the season. And even then, you'll be lucky to start with 30. But because we've already got 20, 24, 25, then 15 more for Brentford should be fine. So in terms of staying up, that's great. That's fine. I mean, what I guess Brentford fans want now is we've had 1 year, 2 years ago, it was only 1 point off Europe. We want to try and push towards the next level, which is, I appreciate that is very difficult. But, you've got to aim for something next. You don't want to be the team that, just survives every season, because eventually, you probably will just go down. I think the frustration is injuries for the second year running. It was around Christmas last year where we lost Rico Henry, and he's still not returned, by the way, and Aaron Hickey. They're our first choice fullbacks, hence why I asked the Walker Peters question. But we also lost Brian and Boomer around this time last year. He was out for a couple of months. Obviously, last year we had the Ivan Toney ban. Then Wissa went off to AFCON. So we had a lot of injuries and disruption last year. And recently, it seems to be happening again. So we don't have fullbacks anyway, because I've just said they're still injured from last year. But we covered that area okay. But then recently, the likes of Ethan Pinnock got injured. Christopher Ayers injured again. Vandenberg was injured, but he came back last night for the Arsenal game. Flecken even came off against Brighton, but again, he seems to be okay. But there's just a lot of injuries. Igor Thiago, the new signing that we bought in to replace Ivan Toney, he's played about 2 or 3 times this season, then got injured again. So he's out. Yeah, so it's just a bit of a up and down on the injury front, and it's just a shame, because I think Brentford fans are thinking that we're not really seeing the full potential of the side. And, I'm excited by what the full potential could be, because, we are still doing okay, but I do think there's another level that we could get to, and it's just injuries are holding us back a little bit. But apart from that, I think the fixture list has dictated our form a little bit as well. I think, at the start of the season we had home games, and all these home wins that we had at the start of the season were against yourselves, they were against Ipswich, they were against Leicester, they were against Palace, they were against Wolves. So, the bottom 5 or 6, essentially, we played them all at home at the beginning of the season, and that's where the majority of our points have come from. So more recently, obviously, we've had Arsenal at home last night, Forest at home, who are very, very good this season, very defensively solid, and just very difficult to even create many chances against. We've been to Chelsea, we've been to Brighton, we got a point at Brighton, but yeah, it's tough fixes. I mean, our last victory was at home to Newcastle, which is a very good win in itself, because since then they've won pretty much every game. So I think it's partly down to form as well as the injuries.
And yeah, we saw you go in front against Arsenal. And I mean, what's the goal scoring been like if you're struggling with these injuries? Is it still sort of fluid and joined together, or is that main sort of groupings of players and unfamiliarity been part of the problem?
I think the injury front this year is more defensively. Obviously, we've always lacked the depth at fullback when our first choices are out, and then recently, apart from Nathan Collins, every other centre back has been injured at some point in the last few weeks. If something was to happen to either Collins or Vandenberg at the weekend, then the centre back on the bench that would replace them is a 19-year-old from South Korea who's played a few minutes in the Premier League, but only in the last week because of all the injuries we've had. So we're a bit low at the back. I think against Arsenal, we probably would have played a back 5 if we had a third centre back, and we had to go with back 4 ultimately because of the lack of other availability. I mean, against you guys, we'll set up with a back 4 anyway. It's only really against the big 6 that we set up with back 5. In terms of going forward, I think we're still quite fluid and dynamic. I think I would have liked someone like Thiago to be available again against the better sides when we need to go a bit longer. And he's like an outball, someone who can, go up with the opposition centre-backs and hopefully just get us up the pitch. But against teams more in and around us, we are trying to play a bit more football again. And if you get it into Damsgaard, I think has been our best player this season. I think most things that we do well goes through him. If we can get him on the ball in good positions, and then the likes of Brian and Brumo, Johan Wisser, and probably Kevin Schade running off of it in all different directions, I'm confident that he'll find them and that we can be dangerous going forwards. Although, again, you could say that we've been much more dangerous at home than we have been away this season. But again, I think that's partly down to the fixture list.
If you're looking for a centre-back, I've heard there's this guy called Jack Stevens who might be available.
No, I'm not sure. We'll take that.
No? He had 2 red cards this season. It's fine. No, I think you'll probably... Well, looking... Obviously, I know we'll talk store predictions probably a little bit later or after the break, but historically, you've beaten us in the last 4 games by more than 2 goals. 3 of those games being 3 goals. So, I think that you probably will be okay, if I'm totally honest. That, what bias I'm showing my negativity that Greg gets so upset about.
It's one that it's going to be interesting from our perspective, I guess, because it's the first time our new manager's had a full week on the training pitch, but I feel like it's cautious optimism all round. Okay. So, as Zach alluded to, after the break, we'll come back with our score predictions and how we think it's going to play out at the weekend. First, a message from our partners at Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sport Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, so yeah, I before the break, I said the weekend because I still don't know what day it is, but it is on Saturday, the game. I've checked. We're going down. It's fine. Off to St Mary's. Daniel, you said you'll be at the game. Are you sort of heading down early or?
Yeah, I'll head down early, make a day of it. Yeah.
There's
Enjoy
so
our
much
new
to see. There's like a museum somewhere in Southampton, and there's the council estate you have to walk through before you get to the stadium.
I
And
can't
you got
wait.
the fan zone where you're sitting in what used to be a car park. And they've opened the new pub, which they spent a lot of money on instead of a striker. You can tell I'm not bitter. It should be good. It's usually a good atmosphere around St Mary's, to be fair.
And all right, as the away team, Daniel, I'll throw to you first. How do you see it playing out on Saturday?
I'm a little bit cautious because it was around this time last year that we went to Sheffield United and it was just a very dull game and we lost 1-0. And if injuries are to have an impact, then it could potentially be something similar. Especially, I'm a bit more wary with you guys under new management. I think obviously you would have had longer to prepare for this game, given that we played Wednesday night and you've had the week off. And obviously, it's his first real week on the training ground. And I suspect the first thing he'll want to do is make you guys tough to beat and just more solid. And if that happens, and if the game, has minimal chances, then, perhaps you guys can nick it. But the other side of me says that we are playing a little bit differently this season, and we have done better this season against the sides in and around us or below us in the table. I think if we've done worse in any games, it's actually been against the better teams, because we are trying to go a bit more toe-to-toe, and obviously we're still not at the level to do that. So I've got to back us in terms of our attacking strengths. I think Damsgaard is brilliant, and Mbeumo and Wissa can be brilliant. And I think that could just overpower you, I think, even if you are trying to be quite solid. I think that's definitely where our strength is. Whereas if you were able to take your chances, and again, like you said, with your strikers and your personnel up front, it might not be likely. But if you are to create chances, and there will be chances, I think, in this game for you guys. But I will back Brentford, and I will say it'll be a first win on the road this season, and I'll go 3-1. I think you guys will score. And I think you will be tough to break down initially. But I think we have got one. We are one of the highest scorers in the Premier League. I think. Yeah, I can see us breaking you down with those three in particular that I've mentioned.
We do have a tendency for heads to drop at a certain point, so it's definitely not outside the scope of possibilities. Zach, feeling positive heading into the game?
So it's a new year. I've had a week under a new manager. Is he going to make us tough to beat? Are we going to scrape a 1-0 win? Are we finally going to see a tall pool goal? Because I think if that happens, the morale across the entire stadium, across the whole of Southampton will be boosted. And then we'll shut up shop for the rest of the game. And then we'll get a win. And he'll get an interview for, it'll be incredible. Everyone will be really happy. We'll start to think that we're getting to Europe again, as Greg likes to allude all the time. So yeah. I obviously have a completely other different opinion to that, which is more in line with that. However, I'm going to stick with the 1-0 for you, Greg, just this once.
Nice.
It could happen. Well, it could happen.
It could. It really could. All right, I've come armed with a statistic straight off of BBC Sport, right? Here we go. As a Premier League side, Southampton have won their first league game in 3 of the last 4 calendar years, including a 4-1 win over Brentford. So even I'm not deludedly optimistic enough to predict 4-1, but I think I don't see us keeping a clean sheet either. I think a 2-1 win is what we're in store for.
Greg, we still have one of those players that scored, which is absolutely wild, which is Jan Bednarek.
There you go. What an insane throwback. But yeah, I'm feeling optimistic. We're back at the point of the week where the optimism is built, and I'm ready to go down to St Mary's and have that crushed out of me for another week. So
this is the thing. This is like my secret, mate. Is you just stay miserable forever, and then when it does finally happen, you're really happy.
Okay, well, that is just about all we've got time for. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Daniel, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a good day out on Saturday, but not too good. And best of luck for the rest of the season. I hope that it becomes very enjoyable for you after Saturday.
Thank you. I'll bring Kyle Walker-Peters back with me.
You and every other team in the bottom 10, I think.
That's it. Well, thank you very much. We've been the Daily Southampton and the Daily Brentford from the Global Sports Podcast Network, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.